because we come from communities where the truth doesn't always reach the headlines, but it lives in what we face every day. This is Changing Trends and Times, bringing clarity and context to the issues shaping our lives right now. No spin, no distractions, just real talk rooted in real impact. Now, are you ready to lean in and bring your voices into the conversation? Then, allow me to introduce to you a man committed to asking the questions that matter and breaking it down so we all understand. Your host.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Changing Trends and Times, where we keep you updated on real-time news and the things that are happening that are affecting your community and your life. Today, we are talking about a very special topic, one that's mainstream, one that you won't get in the media, mainstream media, because this is something that affects us, that could cause us, each and every last one of us, some problems for long term, probably decimate communities. I'm talking about data centers. And so let me just give you guys a little backstory on this. Let me give you this intro as we move into the show, because it's very important that you guys get this and understand what is being said to you, because you know, when we say each one teach one, for those of you that are here today, and those of you that follow the blog Changing Trends and Times, and for those of you that follow the YouTube channel Changing Trends and Times, as well as the Facebook page Changing Trends and Times, the LinkedIn page Changing Trends and Times, I need you all to be tuned in. I need you all to get this information, because I need you to understand what these data centers are doing and how they are going to be affecting you, your community, and the economical effects that are going to be devastating to all communities. So just a little backstory about these data centers. This is the largest infrastructure build out since the interstate highway system is happening right now and is landing in your backyard. Massive data centers are rising across America at a pace that's never been seen before. 96 major data center facilities are tracked across 23 states right now. Yes, 23 states right now, and we have 50 states. That's almost half the country. 14 are already operational, 25 are under construction, and 54 more have been announced. The four biggest tech companies, Microsoft, Amazon, Meta, and Alphabet, known as Google, plan to spend up to $725 billion this year alone on data center capital expenditures. That is more than the GDP of Switzerland. So I want you guys to see and make sure that you check and you look at this graphic that's right here on the screen right now. This is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the four major tech giants in the country, the money they're spending, and look at the places. But here's the part they don't put in the press release. Americans living near data centers are paying up to 267% more on their utility bills than they did just 5 years ago. That is real money out of real pockets. That's causing real issues for real people. Over 570 additional projects are in the pipeline. More than 100 gigawatts of new capacity are planned. To put that in perspective, that is enough electricity to power every home in California, Texas, and New York combined. Today on Changing Trends and Times, we take you inside the explosion, the money, the power, the politics, and the people caught in the middle. This is the story of America's data center boom and who is really paying for it. Now, I want you guys to see as we go through this graphic here, as you're looking at this, what I want you to understand about this is turning into real issues with real power. So as you look at this graphic shows you where and how many centers are being planned, about the money, but also it doesn't quite take you into all of the states. But what this does is this is giving you the economical power behind this and why this is affecting all of our communities, and all of our communities are having to pay for this when you're not even benefiting from this. Now, the scary part about this, and I'm not trying to scare anybody, but this is what the AI boom is happening. This is the AI boom. I'll just put it to you like that. And so what that means is, as we get into this story today, is that this is basically is telling you that it only takes 30 to 50 people to operate these centers. So what that means is they lie to people about your state and your city and your county lie to you about the job situation, because there won't be jobs, because there's only 30 to 50 people that will be able to operate these centers on a 24/7 basis, but they're taking up all of the utilities where they're located. That is all the water and all the power is what the electricity has to go to these data centers in order for them to be operated. So let's start with this. The basics about the data the data centers. A data center is a warehouse for computers. Rows upon rows of servers that store, process, and deliver digital services we all depend on. Email, streaming, banking, social media. Every time you ask an AI a question, a data center answers. Data centers are now, they're not new. They've existed for decades. What is new is the scale. Artificial intelligence changed everything. AI models require massive computing power to train and operate, and that has triggered an unprecedented building spree. So what's happening is that those that are computer savvy and you're using your computer, especially when you're using the AI prompts, these prompts are actually prompted and used from these data centers. It's the data center that's actually answering those questions and helping you with whatever it's helping you with. But what that's saying is that you're using it for one way, but the people that are in the areas are the ones that are being, having to pay more and more in their utility bills in order for these things to stay fueled. Here's the number that defines this moment. 96 major data center facilities across 23 states. 14 are operational today, 25 are actively under construction, and 54 have been formally announced. Now, what that's saying to you is you don't know if it's going to be your state, your city, your town, or where you are. But what I'm saying to you right now is I'm giving you this information to where you can start and you can plan as to keeping this from actually happening near you. If you guys actually had the opportunity to go and check out the blog post on Changing Trends and Times, you will see an example of what these things look like, because there's an example where you see the picture of the data center that's in Georgia, as well as one that's in Virginia. And you'll see how huge these things are. but also you will see how I mentioned in the beginning, the rows upon rows of servers that are there and how they're processing. And so they're using nuclear energy to do this. But in that whole process, they've got to keep these things cool. And so what they're doing is they're using the actual power for the areas in which they're stored. Now, what you guys might want to understand is that your governor, someone in your state has made the deal with these companies to do these data centers. This is without the knowledge of the people that live in these communities where they're throwing these things up. And so what you start to find is that as they're close to you, you'll know if you start to having like your internet is slow. You may have like flickering with your power. Your water bill starts to go high. Your electricity bill starts to go high. You have all these things that are happening. But that is just the tip of the iceberg. Beyond those 96 tract mega facilities, there are more than 570 upcoming projects in various stages of planning, representing over 100 gigawatts of capacity in the pipeline. Now, remember, as I stated earlier, that 100 gigawatts of electricity, that can power alone the state of California, the state of Texas, and the state of New York. Now, we're talking about the three largest states in the U.S. Now, if they're using that kind of power, who's paying for this? That's the question. Who is paying for this? The money is staggering. In 2026, the four hyperscalers, Microsoft, Amazon, Meta, and Alphabet, known as Google, are projected to spend a combined $725 billion in capital expenditures. Meta alone raised its forecast up to $145 billion. Microsoft and Alphabet each project $190 billion. Amazon is holding it roughly $200 billion. Now think about all this money that they're investing, and they're putting these centers in your city. They're putting these things in your backyard, and you have no control over this. JP Morgan projects 63% year-over-year growth in AI-related capital expenditure. And analysts warn that total AI capex across the industry could exceed $1 trillion by 2027. We're in the steepest investment curve in technology history. Now, as you look at this, can you tell, what do you think is going to be the most popular part of this whole entire thing? Because as you look at this, I want you to think about this, because check out what's happening here. Okay, you see this big data expenditure, right? You see that money when you look at this chart. You see the $200 billion for Amazon. You see the $190 billion for Microsoft. You see the $185 billion for Google or Alphabet, whichever you want to call them. And you see the $135 billion for Meta, which is Facebook. Now, as you look at that, and I want you to see Amazon being the largest spender, I want you to know that Amazon, they have some of their data centers that are projected to be built here, but they're already working abroad. And so primarily, the end result for this is going to be AI taking away an enormous amount of jobs. Now, let me tell you how the people can actually do something about that. If you want to use the AI, you can use AI and you can prevent a lot of this. But I will tell you this. Overall, you're not going to stop AI. You're not going to stop it. You're not going to stop it. But this is what they're doing and what they're spending on this They're spending this on AI in these data centers, and I'm telling you, the capacity is going to be huge. So why is AI so power hungry? Because AI chips consume 10 to 14 times more electricity than traditional data center processors. A single AI training cluster can draw as much power as a small city. That's not hyperbole. That is engineering reality. This is real. There's nothing fake about this. There are two phases of AI computing you need to understand. That is, training is when AI model learns. It requires enormous concentrated power in one location. One location. The inference is when the model answers your questions, and it needs to happen everywhere, close to users. That is why data centers are spreading to every corner of the country. Every corner of the country. So, as you see this, when you look at this chart and you look at this, we're talking about the data center capacity pipeline. So, and this is by state, okay? So, as you see this right here, you see the gigawattage. You see the states over here to the left. These are the states to the left. And these are the gigawattages right here to the right. Now, I want you to look at this and you see how much they're using. Now, again, I asked a question to you guys because you should have seen differences in your utility bills. When you see this right here, you're clearly seeing exactly what is taking place. You now know why your power bill and your water bill is going up so high. And when you go to your local county, city, and state government to ask questions about this, if there's already a center there, there's nothing you can do. But if there's a center coming, there's a lot you can do to plan and have action to stop this from happening. Because this is going to be at a force that's none ever like anyone has ever seen. The demand on America's power grid is massive. 14 major utilities have committed to building 64 gigawatts of new generation capacity. That represents a 12% increase in total U.S. electricity demand. Now, I'm going to tell you guys an example of a place that's actually doing this already. Now, you see the states that are here, but I'm in Georgia. These things are already happening. They're already happening. Microsoft has got an enormous amount of data centers that's planted around here in Metro Atlanta. And in having those things here, and a lot of us did not know they were here. And, you know, we try to keep up with what's happening in many, many ways. But that's one of the things that's hard to, that was hard to find out until it actually happened and they started to build it. So at any rate, the premise of this is when you look at this and you think about this, I can tell you we're already experiencing both an increase in water bill as well as an increase in power, despite what Georgia Power is saying about freezing rates. Let me tell you what that means as well, because they talk about they're freezing rates for 5 years. Now, I want you to think about that 6th year when that freeze is off. Your electric bill is going to be sky high. You're going to be paying something like almost a 200% increase in what you're paying now. So, like, our power bill at my house is like $75. We're talking about in 5 years looking at something that's going to be something like maybe $200. The water bill has already increased to $85, and there's only 2 people in the house. I have a question here in the chat. Let me see what's going on here. Leo. Yeah, I can say Leo. because that's absolutely that's a good comparison. Um, so go here. Well, this is a good question here when you're asking what about RAM? Well, when you're asking about RAM, that's another part of the data chip itself that's increased in power. And so when you're talking about that RAM, you see, it's like every time you ask AI a question or you give that prompt something to actually work with or to process, that processor goes through and it sucks up an enormous amount of power. So as it's sucking up all that power is going to do some things that you would not believe, to where when it gives you that answer, what you have just done is you've actually charged a radius that could be as wide as maybe a 50-mile radius, has been charged an enormous amount for that processing, because the companies that put those data centers there are not paying for that. The communities are the ones that's paying for that on their electric bill. And that's definitely not fair. But we're here in the US, and nothing has ever been fair when it comes to the government and the work that it does. So we've got to actually do a lot that is all around this country as to deciding these people that we're putting into office, these politicians, because they're being paid. We actually need to come up, get people that represent us from our communities that are actually going to do the real work and going to stop these situations like this from happening, because they are real and this is real time. This is real stuff that's happening. Wood Mackenzie now tracks 134 gigawatts of proposed data center capacity nationwide, a 68% increase from what they tracked in 2024. The growth is accelerating, not slowing down. And so, again, this shows you, with all of the power that's being used, that people are not ready for this, did not plan for this, and definitely don't want this, because the complaining has already started some time ago in the state of Ohio, because those people noticed the influx in their power bills. Now, when they talk about these main data centers, the ones that are doing the most damage at this point, to my knowledge, are the ones that's in Ohio, the ones that are in Virginia, and the ones that are here in Georgia, because they are just there. These are some of the centers that are already operational. They're huge monstrosities, and they're doing some things that you just would not believe. I want you guys to go to your search bar and put in changingtrendsandtimes.blog.wordpress.com. And I want you to look at that blog post where we're talking about what we're talking about today. Because when you go there and you actually get this from that post, you're going to learn a whole lot more as to what's happening, because we plan to continuously to inform you, the audience, you, the American people, you, the traditional people that need to get this information to keep yourself from being bombarded by something that you have no control of, but something that can help you to get yourself in the place in which you need to be in order to save yourself, not just economically, but to keep something that could cause you more harm than you can imagine, to keep that from happening. The single biggest bottleneck is not money. It is not the chips. It is the grid connections. Getting permission to connect to the electrical grid can take 5 to 7 years in some regions. That queue is the choke point of the entire AI build out. And so these are the facilities, as I showed you guys before, right? So as you see this, and we're talking about the choke out and the build out. So we're going to go to, let me find the, here we go right here. You see this right here, the monthly electricity bill and the impact on residents. Now you see the difference here is before and the after. The before is blue. The orange or the red, whichever color you see it as, is the after effect. And do you see just how bad and how much this is happening in communities that the bills are actually on a real serious rise? Now, when we think about our local city, county, municipalities, none of us had any inkling that this was happening because these deals were done directly with these major tech companies. And so when they asked them about building these things, they didn't care about the influx of the powers that the situations and the problems it would cause the residents. They didn't think about that. They really did not care. And so because they did not care, you see just how much your bill is rising. You see here on this first grid, it says this is an increase of 27%. On this one, there's an increase of 59%. This one's at 43%, and this one is at 267%. So as you see, when you get this right here, this is when all 96 of those facilities are in place. The residents are going to see a 267% increase in their electric bills. That is crazy. That is crazy for something you did not want. But then also, as I mentioned to you guys, these things carry nuclear power. So if they're carrying nuclear power, you know that there's going to be radiation depending upon how close you are to this thing that's going to radiate and is going to make people sick. That's actually going to happen. People are actually going to start getting sick from this. So to bypass the grid delays, companies are doing something extraordinary. They're building their own power plants, natural gas facilities, solar farms, even nuclear reactors, all dedicated to feeding data centers. This building boom is creating a new geography of power in America. You heard me. A new geography of power. States that once competed for auto plants and steel mills are now competing for server farms. The economic calculus of the 21st century runs on compute. Runs on compute. The construction workforce required is enormous. We're talking about tens of thousands of electricians, iron workers, pipe fitters, and heavy equipment operators per project. Some of these campuses span over 1,000 acres. So let's be clear about what is happening. This is not a tech trend. This is an industrial revolution. And like every industrial revolution before it, the question is not whether it will change everything, but who wins and who loses. Now let's go state by state and look at where these data centers are landing, because this is not spreading evenly. A handful of states are absorbing the vast majority of this build out, and the concentration has consequences. So let's go back to this chart and where is it at? This chart right here. And this is where you see the states here to the left that actually are already into this. Virginia is the undisputed capital of the data center world, with over 4,900 megawatts of operational capacity. Northern Virginia's market is 5 times larger than the number 2 market on the planet, Ashburn, Virginia. Ashburn, Virginia is known as Data Center Alley, the single most connected place on the earth. Virginia's data center vacancy rate has dropped below 1%. Demand has so far outpaced supply that companies are scrambling south, QTS Richmond has an 854 megawatt campus. Cloud HQ has proposed 1.7 gigawatts in new capacity, and there are 6,600 additional megawatts in the pipeline across the state. This is Virginia alone. This is Virginia alone that's got this kind of dedicated power that they're dedicating to data centers. That is crazy. Do you think they actually reached out to these residents to tell them about this? I don't think so. And the thing is Northern Virginia is much different than Southern Virginia. So that means that the resources that are there are much more valuable and viable for the use of a data center, but they're using a data center unbeknownst and without being given, without permission from the residents. But of course, I understand that this is done via the state with the governor. And you know, when they're actually doing that power grab, they did a power grab. But the people of Virginia are going to suffer majorly. And of course, as you hear, as I said earlier, they're considered data center capital. And so what are the people going to have to do about this? Okay, but Virginia is also where the backlash has begun. Dominion Energy's connection cost is $4.3 billion in infrastructure upgrades. They're being spread across residential customers in 7 states. Virginians are asking, why are we subsidizing Silicon Valley's electricity? That's a great question. Why are they? But are the governors really talking to the residents and letting them know what's happening? That answer is no. But this is just to give you guys an idea as to what's happening here. But also, if it's not happening in your state yet, you need to pay attention to this, because you guys are going to have to be on this. And you're going to have to make sure that this is not happening to you in your city or your community if they're trying to build a data center there. You need to go and find out what's the plans for your city at your city hall. Because when that data center comes in, believe me, once they start construction, then it's over. Texas leads the nation in pipeline capacity with 17,700 megawatts across 18 major facilities. Texas has cheap land, cheap energy, and a deregulated grid, and no state income tax. It is the wild, wild west of data centers, and the companies love it. Wow, ain't that something? The people in the state of Texas have got all of these grids, all of these data centers popping up, and nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing is being said to them. They're just popping up. They're just popping up. And so when we just look at this, this is the infrastructure capex. So I want you guys to take a look at this, because I want to show you as I was talking about with the infrastructure and the power that they're using, right? Do you see how the money grab takes place? Starts from here, which was already high, but you see where it actually starts, like right in here, but it goes on the incline. And look at that final number. Look at that final number. This is what's happening when it comes to these data centers. These data centers are not doing what they're supposed to do. Instead, what they're doing is that they're doing the big money grab, but they're also destroying communities. So now what happens if there's all of a sudden a ghost town? And so if there's a ghost town and folk are fleeing to go to a place where they don't have to pay all of these bills and so forth, now how does that work? Because if there's no people there, and if there's no data center, well, and there are data centers, then now you have a real pickle on your hand, because you may have some people that may say, well, I want to be next to these nuclear plants, which I don't think anybody commonly that's in their right mind want to be anywhere near a nuclear plant. You do not. That's crazy. The crown jewel in Texas is Stargate Abilene, the flagship campus of the Stargate Initiative. This facility sits on 1,100 acres with a planned capacity of 1.2 gigawatts. It became the first site to deploy NVIDIA GB200 racks, going live within 1 year of groundbreaking. That is an extraordinary construction pace. Ohio and its significance for viewers right here is emerging as a data center powerhouse as well. The state now has 11 gigawatts planned across 10 major facilities. Ohio ranks 5th nationally with roughly 200 data center sites already. 200. Now, I'll tell you this. What makes this more extraordinary, and I think we're probably going to see more and more of this build out, is in the Midwest, because the Midwest is more spread out than most cities here, especially on the East Coast or the West Coast. The Midwest, from top to bottom, there's like land in between like you would never imagine. The single most ambitious project in the country may be the Ports Technology Campus in Pike County, Ohio. Built on the site of the former Cold War era uranium enrichment plant, this campus is planned for 10 gigawatts of capacity, more than half the total operating data center capacity in the entire nation today. That's horrible. That is horrible. The sports campus is backed by $33.3 billion in Japanese funding through SoftBank and its subsidiary, SoftBank Energy, part of the U.S.-Japan Strategic Trade and Investment Agreement. It will require 35,000 construction workers at peak and create approximately 2,500 permanent jobs once operational. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick called it the largest bet on a construction facility ever made in history. That's horrible. That's a sad thing to say, because you see, when they say 2,500 permanent jobs, again, this is a falsehood. That's not true. That is not true. There will not be 2,500 jobs set for this. And this is, again, one of those things that they set out where they tell people this and people fall for this and people are believing that, but that is not true. That is not going to happen. And again, Ohio's been decimated before when they lost manufacturing plants for cars. And so now they're on pace for something else that's going to have do harm, here in the state that's not necessary. Also in Ohio, Stargate Lordstown in Northeast Ohio planned at 1.5 gigawatts. Ohio residents, however, have responded by filing a petition for a statewide constitutional ban on mega data centers, a sign of just how polarized this issue has become. Now we get to where I live here in Georgia. Georgia has quietly become the Southeast data center hub with 94 operational facilities. Microsoft's Fairwater Super Factory is a next generation campus. QTS Atlanta offers 278 megawatts, and Microsoft's East US3 cloud region is anchored in the state. Georgia Power offered discounted rates to lure these projects. And now ratepayers are asking, who's paying the bill? The question is, we are. And so let me just tell you, I sit right in the middle of where 2 data centers are built. And I'm on the west perimeter of Metro Atlanta out in Douglas County. So there's a plant that's like here to my west in Douglasville, right? And it is like, it's about 15 or so miles from where I am, but it's a huge facility. Going back to the east, heading towards downtown Atlanta, there's another facility, again, that's about 15, 20 miles from where I am. And so, as you see, Microsoft has strategically planned 2 data centers that's actually sucking up power throughout Metro Atlanta. And so, where we're all having these power issues and we're all paying these major power bills, we're all having these internet dysfunctions that are happening. All of this is most likely due to these data centers. And these data centers are sucking up so much power that we don't really know what's happening. We just have to accept it. And that's not what I'm willing to do. And I don't want you guys to be willing to do the same thing, because I'm telling you, once these things take hold, they're going to be a problem, because they're never going to go anywhere. But what's going to happen to the people? This is what that 1% is doing. Indiana is home to Amazon's Project Rainier, the single largest tracked data center facility in the nation. Located across 1,200 acres with 1.09 gigawatts of planned capacity and an estimated investment of $11 billion. That's to the city and the state. This one facility represents a bit bigger than the GDP of many small countries. Wow. Across the West and Appalachia, new frontiers are opening. Utah has 18 gigawatts in its pipeline. West Virginia, traditionally coal country, is pivoting to data with 8 gigawatts planned. New Mexico is emerging with 5 gigawatts of proposed capacity. So what is driving the geographic spread? There's 3 things: cheap land, available power, and willing politicians. Rural communities see data centers are economic salvation, but the trade-offs are becoming increasingly clear. So what you thought about as far as jobs and money compared to what you're going to have to pay and the illnesses that's going to be caused, is it worth having a data center near you? Is it worth it? Is it worth it? So notice the pattern. These projects are target areas with low population density and existing energy infrastructure. Former industrial sites, decommissioned military bases, shuttered power plants. America's past is being repurposed for America's digital future. Each one of these campuses requires not just electricity, but enormous quantities of water for cooling. A single large data center can consume millions of gallons of water per day. In drought-prone regions, that is a direct conflict with agriculture and residential needs. The competition between states is fierce. Tax incentives, fast-track permits, reduced environmental reviews. States are offering everything they can to land these projects. The question is whether the communities hosting them actually benefit. Here's the bottom line on geography. Data centers are now the most consequential land use decision. Facing rural America, where they go determines who gets jobs, who pays more for electricity, and who loses their water supply. The power map is a political map of the next decade. So when we think about that, I want you guys to look at this. And when you see this and you think about what's on this chart, I want you to see what's in the green and what's here in the red. It's basically like a pros and cons, but you see, well, it says promises versus the reality. And so you see what the promise is, and you see what the reality is. Your politicians have actually sold you out. Our politicians, where I am here in Georgia, have sold us out. And they really don't care what happens or what we get. They don't care what happens. They don't care about if there's a benefit or not. For them, it's all about the money that they're able to put in their pockets and what they're able to keep for self. So, so what you're going to find about this when we talk about this strategy and AI supremacy and the national security. Basically, people, what you guys should be seeing here is, you know, when we talk about all of these things that are happening, yeah, we can say they're happening for a reason, but they're not good reasons and they're not beneficial for any of us. So let me show you guys this slide. Okay. So I want you to see this right here. You see it says ratepayer and community protection scorecard. You see right here where it says what the protections are supposed to be and how this goes all the way across. Excuse me. How this goes all the way across. When you look at this, there is nothing that's going to protect and benefit people in these communities when it comes down to this. This is all the lie that was sold to get in. Now they're in, and this is what's happening. Let's look at this one. This is the risk dashboard. So I want you to see how this is color coded here to the right. You see, as this color change as you go down here, this is telling you what the risks are. And actually, you start this from bottom to top because this is go. And now you're at yellow where you're yielding. But now you're going from yellow to red, yellow to red, yellow to red to red. When you get here, this is the bad part. This is the thing that causes much more harm to people. So let me just go back to this. So Executive Order 14141 established 5 core principles: protect national security, preserve economic competitiveness, revitalize energy infrastructure, maintain low consumer electricity prices, and ensure AI development benefits workers and communities. Those 5 pillars define the policy tension at the heart of this story. So the thing is, excuse me, for all those things that I just mentioned here in this order, are those things really going to happen for those communities, for those people? We don't know that, but so far, I say no. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. The strategy is to have more and more of these data centers put up all over the country. There is no such as an even trade-off, because what we're actually seeing is something that is going to do massive, massive harm to our communities and to the people in the communities. When we talk about the human cost, that is utility bills and the backlash. That is another thing that none of us will ever be able to put just into context as to what and why is this happening. Do we really want to try to stay supportive of these things because you hear them talking about AI, but AI is not where it's supposed to be when it comes to the regular individual and the work that he or she does. So, if you're asking me and what my opinion is, I'm going to tell you what my opinion is. And this is strictly my opinion. I think they're putting these data centers here because they want to do several things. One of those things is they want to decimate towns, and they want to, cause so much harm, wreak so much harm on communities because they want them disbanded. They want people to move out, and they want to find a way to take over these towns. There may be a few people that work in these data centers because it's only going to take up to 50 people on this year-round basis and actually to operate these things. So if it's going to take up to 50 people and you've got 3 shifts, first, second, and third shift, divide that by 50, and it tells you, you can get away with this for some time. You can get away with that for some time. Now, is that going to be beneficial for you? I don't know. But I would love it to be, but I'm going to tell you. I just want you guys to be cautious, be aware of what's happening to you economically, but also to know that these things, they're not what they're supposed to be. They're not. And I just keep wondering, how many times does the American people have to keep suffering from so many different things? So when we talk about the road ahead, data centers are driving a nuclear renaissance in America. Tech companies are signing long-term contracts for nuclear power, including investments in small modular reactors and even fusion energy research. The AI boom may accomplish what decades of energy policy could not, making next generation nuclear commercially viable. I don't think that's a good thing. I think that's a harmful thing and also a scary thing. Because if these things aren't maintained properly, this is where the harm takes place. The demand is also accelerating renewable energy deployment. Microsoft, Google, and Amazon are among the largest purchasers of solar and wind energy on the planet. Data centers may be the catalyst that finally tip the synergy towards clean resources, but only if companies follow through on their commitments. How many of you think that these people are going to commit to what they're doing? They're going to be breaking all kind of rules. And they're going to tell all of these politicians and these state officials that you got my money, you know what I'm doing, and don't mess with me. What we're witnessing is a deepening urban-rural divide. The economic benefits of AI, the high-paying software jobs, the venture capital, the startup ecosystem, concentrate in cities, but the infrastructure, the land, the power, the water comes from rural America. This is an extraction pattern as old as the country is itself. And so what they're talking about is when we came into the Industrial Revolution and those that were living out in rural areas were forced to leave because everything that was being built was done there in the Midwest. It took a lot. They took a lot from people, forced people out, and we're here where we are today. Now, what we have to also think about is the regulatory landscape. The regulatory landscape is evolving rapidly but unevenly. Some states are racing to attract data centers with minimal oversight. Others are pumping the brakes. The absence of a comprehensive federal framework means that protection demand on whatever. Wow. This is wild. I can't believe we're at this point right now that we're about to have a takeover of data centers and AI that will most likely be controlling people as we are today. States face a genuine dilemma: compete or protect. If one state imposes strict environments and ratepayer protections, the data center mindly moves. Wow, I'm sorry. They move to the next state over. This race to the bottom can only be solved at the federal level. And that conversation is just beginning. So I can tell you right now, with this administration, they're not really going to do anything about this because, you have somebody that's sitting up there that actually wants to capitalize off that position as president. So I'm sure that if that person is involved, then for him, it's all about him being paid as well. If there's no money for him, he's not going to support it. If there is money for him, he supports it. Now, I'm saying, regardless of where you stand, certain protections should be non-negotiable. Ratepayer isolation, residential customers must never subside. Commercial must never subsidize commercial electricity. Water accountability, data centers must not deplete community water supplies. Transparency, communities must know what is being built, how much it consumes, and what it emits. So if we don't get the opportunity to know these things, then that means that, all is lost. So let me just tell you guys this in closing. We've covered a lot of ground today. $725 billion in spending, 96 mega facilities across 23 states, a $500 billion Stargate initiative, a 10 gigawatt campus in Ohio, utility bills up 267%, constitutional ban petitions, federal pledges, and real Americans making impossible choices about heat, water, and home. This is not a story that ends tonight. This is a story that's just beginning. The decisions being made right now in state capitals, in boardrooms, and public utility commissions will shape America's life for the next 50 years. And for the next 50 years, I know none of us are trying to suffer under these consequences. I just want you guys to know that at Changing Trends and Times, we believe you deserve to understand these forces before they reshape our community. Not after, before. If this reporting mattered to you, share it, talk about it with your neighbors, your local officials, your state representative. The data center coming to your county will be the most consequential development decision in a generation. Make sure you have a voice in it. Thank you for spending this time with us. I'm your host, and this has been Changing Trends and Times. Stay informed, stay engaged, and we will see you next time on America on Changing Trends and Times, where I want you guys to be sure that you have all the news, the updated data and situations that you deserve, and you get what you need. Also, as I said earlier, please go to our YouTube channel, Changing Trends and Times. Go to our blog, Changing Trends and Times.wordpress, Changing Trends and Times blog.wordpress.com. Go to our website, Changing Trends and Times. Please subscribe to our newsletters. Please let us know what you think. Please share this story, and please show people that blog post, because there's other articles I will be posting to our website, Changing Trends and Times, that's going to have a lot to say about this. And I want you guys to please stay informed and follow us. Please subscribe. I will see you guys next Saturday at 2. You all